Now that we've made our flying geese block, let's make our log cabin block. Very similar to the flying geese block. You have your foundation paper pieced block ready to go. I went ahead and pre-cut my fabric. So I'm going to start with my floral as my center square block. Then I'm going to go pink. Then I'm going to go our hashtag print. And then I'm going to add this nice contrast of the turquoise or teal. So let's start with our light board. Okay. And I also went ahead and trimmed off the excess paper. Again, you can use that for scrap note taking. So one, and this is our floral block, and I just want to make sure that my seam allowances are okay. Yep, looks good. And then we're going to add our pink, and that's number 2 is here. Again, making sure that I have enough to cover my 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this looks like I need to slide this over. Perfect, and we're ready to sew. Again, we're going to start a 1/4 inch or a little bit more off of the line that we're sewing. We're going to stop a 1/4 inch away, cut our thread, and we're good to go. Now let's trim this one. Same thing that you did in the flying geese block. You're going to use your cardstock or a greeting card or a thin ruler if you have one. You're going to butt it up against the stitch line, fold it over. Actually, this is the wrong way. So if I would have done this and cut this, I would have cut my square away. So it's important to make sure that you double check. Okay, and then we're going to trim 1/4 inch. And we're going to give this a good press. Sometimes I like to give it a good finger press as well, and that'll just help and alleviate some of the stress of the fabric. All right, so there's that one. Now we need to add our 3rd one. Let's bring our light board back. And here's our 3rd piece that we're going to add. Pink. And for a scrappy look, you could totally mix this up. You could go pink and maybe you could go a different color. It's totally up to you. I just like the uniformity of it. So make sure that we have our 1/4 inch. Now we have enough to trim. That looks pretty good to me. And I'm actually going to pin it this time just so that all my layers don't shift. And we're ready to sew. Stopping 1/4 inch away, cut our thread. Now we're ready to trim. Again, we're just going to double check to make sure we're not cutting off any crucial pieces. We're good to go using our cardstock, popping our seam so that everything's flat, and trimming 1/4 inch. Give it a little finger press, and then give it a good iron press. Okay. Now let's do 4 and 5. Bring our light board back. It's a great little workout bringing the light board back and forth. Okay, so let's see, where's 4 at? There's 4. So we're going to use our hashtag print, making sure I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and it looks pretty good. Again, I'm going to give this a good pin in place. And let's sew. Stop it 1/4 inch away, cut our threads. Trim our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Give it a good finger press, and now you're starting to see the log cabin take place. Come into life. Okay, and let's add number 5. Okay, that's number 5. Make sure we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure we're still right sides together. Yep, looks pretty good. Get a little bit of room there. Okay, pin this guy in place. And sew. Using our cardstock, just double checking, make sure we're not capturing anything under there that we don't want to. Trim our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And these are some great scraps too. You could use these for another project as well. Oh man, it's starting to look really good. Give this a good press. All right, 6 and 7. We're almost there with our log cabin block. All right, where's 6 at? 6 is on this side. Make sure we're covering all of our bases. Yep, looks pretty good. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. Give it a good pin. Now we're ready to sew. A little bit of excess fabric here that I don't necessarily need, so I'm going to give that a good trim. Save that for a project later. Using our contact paper, there we go. Trim away our seam allowance. Give it a good press. Okay, now we add our last piece. So exciting. Making sure we have enough to cover our seam allowances. They look pretty good. Give it a good pin in place. Actually, I'm going to take this one a little further over, just so it doesn't create a little bump when I go to stitch it. Okay, and let's sew the final one on. We're in the home stretch. Okay, just want to make sure we're capturing everybody. Trim our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Give this a trim first. Take our pin out. Use our cardstock as our guide. Busting open our seam from block number 6. There it is. Give this a good press. Okay, and the same thing that we did in the flying geese block, we're going to do for the log cabin block, trimming away 1/4 inch seam allowance from our foundation block. Just following the line, adding a 1/4 inch. You're going to trim away all the excess. If you have a rotating cutting mat, it's perfect for this as well because you can rotate the block as you cut it. Get that little piece there. And the last section before we take our paper off. And there we have it. There's our log cabin block. Now let's remove the paper. Same process as the flying geese, going backwards from how you sewed it together. There's 7, 6, 5. It's totally like the New Year's Eve countdown. Except we're going to have a log cabin block drop and not the ball. 4, 3. Oh, the anticipation is killing me. 2, 1. Ta-da! The log cabin block. How great that looks, and it's going to look so good with our flying geese blocks that we made earlier. Next, we're going to do our half square triangle block.